This is the award-winning Lee Pitts Live.
Brought to you by the North Law Firm. For car accidents and negligent security cases, call Joe at 239-337-1191. By Crime Stoppers of Southwest Florida. Report crimes and get paid with nobody knowing your identity. 1-800-780-TIPS. And by Lee Health.
Southwest Florida, welcome to another edition of Lee Pitts Live. We're here at the fabulous McGregor Clinic. Big shout out for the accommodations. They are always outstanding. Special shout out to the Lee Pitts Live Person of the Year a couple of years ago, Sharon Murphy here, the CEO of McGregor Clinic. We have a fabulous show in store for you today. We'll get a chance to find out about an outstanding tour that's going to be taking place, a cultural tour of the Dunbar community that's going to be taking place. We have some representatives here who will be speaking to that fact. Janice Cass, the President Emeritus for the Lee County Black History Society. Also, we'll have Harriet Myers, the past president of the Lee County Black History Society, all a part of the crew. And we have a special treat for you at the end of the show. We'll be right back. Southwest Florida, welcome back. We're so thrilled to get them here. My good friend Janice and Harriet, welcome to Lee Pitts Live again.
Glad to be here.
Janice was on the show less than a year ago, but Harriet, we haven't seen you in about 10 years.
It's been a while.
I am so honored to finally get you. Every time I see you, used to see you over there at the Kerry Robinson Center, and I might say something to Harriet, like, Harriet, come on, try that.
No, I don't work at Kerry anymore.
No, I'm saying, I know you retired, but I used to bump into you there over the years.
Right.
You did a great job there.
I enjoyed it while I was there.
Okay, so we can talk about other stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to get to this, Harriet. I want to be folksy.
Okay.
Now, at the Kerry Robinson Center, I think you were the first director there, or managing that property.
Managing the property, yes.
How have, from the time you started to now, it has just continued to be a staple in the community, very important to our community, right?
It is, yeah.
Why you say that?
Because we need a place in our community that people can have events and not have to go outside of the community, a nice place. And Kerry Robinson presents that.
That's excellent. Janice, you've been around for a long time as well. Other than Kerry Robinson Center, where do we used to go in the community? Do we have anything to go to, a place?
At one point in time, years ago, people used to have events at the auditorium at Dunbar Community School. There still are some events that are held there now. Okay.
The reason, that's a good starting point for me to jump off with the fact that I want to acknowledge the fact that you two, along with some other people, but you two have been very instrumental in maintaining the valuable history that needed to be documented in our community, specifically Dunbar. So I want to commend you guys on taking that forward, which will bring us to where we are today. But let's go back for a second. Janice, you were the founder and president emeritus of the Lee County Black History Society. Tell us about the early days, your thought process, and I want to shout out, what's her name?
Nina.
Rogers.
Shout her out. Let's talk about the early, she was the early curator, right? Nina.
She was the early historian, and you got to do a shout out for Harriet too, because Harriet was one of the original members of
you
the
guys.
organization
Right, okay.
as well. We really started doing things in late 80s, doing a Black History Film Festival to commemorate Black History Month, and then the idea evolved. Started thinking like, what can make this more relevant to the community? Let's talk about people here in the community. Then the thought was, there is no organization that commemorates Black History Month within the Black community. And if we're going to make it relevant and talk about local people, we need to be able to collect data on local people. And if we're going to do that, we need some place to keep the materials that we collect. So the idea of a museum evolved out of that, and needing a location to have a meeting. And we've been working really hard over the years. In the early days, there was a lot of need to get the community more involved, but over the years, the people who maintained working within the organization have made it grow stronger, And it's been a lot of activities that we have at the museum and in the park. The park is also historic itself. And we're glad to be a part of the community, especially with the community changing now. It's very important to us that we maintain an identity. And as I like to say, my new mantra is put some soul back into Soulsville.
All right, there you go. And when she mentions the park, that's Clemente Park. Let's
Clemente
go.
Park, that's what I was just
Go ahead,
getting ready
Harriet.
to say. We need to make sure that people know it's Clemente Park over on Henderson Avenue. And the park is named after Roberto Clemente, which was a baseball player with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Now, when you see what the museum has evolved to, and the Black History Society is more of a household word now. Not, it has evolved to people know what it is now. From the days when you were in the early stages of thinking it through, how surprised are you about the growth and the success of it?
You know what, Lee, I'm really not surprised. I'm happy about it because before I retired, I worked in tourism. So I traveled a lot,
Right.
and I got to see museums, Black history museums in other states and cities. And I'm just really happy that we have that here in Fort Myers now.
Great. Before I get to the current tour that's going to take place, I got a chance to go on a tour, I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, on a bus tour that went through the Dunbar community, identifying all those historic churches and so on. What was that tour? And speak to that a little bit before we go.
That was the tour that Janice was alluding to when we first came, of that book that she has. She, along with others, pulled out the historical sites in the community and wrote facts about it, and the tour was to carry, you go around on the bus and get the facts about all those historic tours, the sites in Dunbar.
Right, and Janice, I remember what stood out to me. I can remember we even went out to the graveyard, and was it Ida Baker's grave that we looked at? It was somebody famous that we looked at.
You're probably talking about Dr. Ella Piper.
Right, Ella Piper,
There's a family plot for her
Right.
there. She was one of the pioneers in the Dunbar community. She and her mother held an annual Christmas event where they gave out toys to children in the community, and she donated her property to the city of Fort Myers upon her death, and that property is now being used as a senior center in the community.
Now,
Let me
go
say
ahead.
something else about the graveyard. Also, a couple of years back now, found the grave site of Nelson Tillis' wife, which Nelson Tillis was the first black man here in Fort Myers, and his wife's grave is in the one of the cemeteries.
I see. So that was just an eye-opening tour. Now technology is allowing us to go on another tour, different type of tour. I will get into that. But it's when I say technology, now we'll be able to use the app, and people will be able to look at it on their phones and on their computers and download it and all these types of things. So Harriet, let's go right into it. What is the Dunbar Cultural Landmark Walking Tour app?
The Cultural Tour Walking app is an app that you would download on your smart device, and you will have a chance to go from place to place. There's 10 sites on that tour. And it will direct you to each one of those sites, and when you get to the site, tell you facts about the historical site.
You're looking for Florida Stories. It's part of Florida Humanities Council, Florida Stories, which is about cities throughout the state of Florida. And we will be the first place from Fort Myers and Lee County that's going to be part of the Florida Stories. So when you get the app, it's going to say Fort Myers Dunbar Cultural Landmarks.
No, the app is Florida Tours.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the app is Florida Tours, and then when you go to the Florida Tours app, that's when you will look for Fort Myers.
Okay. So we're like state of the art now.
Yes.
Okay. How do you get the app? Let's go there.
Okay, you will download, get your smart device, you go to your app store, whether it's Android or an Apple, you go to your app store and you look for Florida Tours, and you download the Florida Tours app. And under the Florida Tours app, then you will look for the Fort Myers Dunbar Cultural Tour.
And people can become a part of that visual by being a part of the tour. that's going to take place in the coming future. Janice, tell us about the launch of the event for the debut of the app.
Yes, what we're going to do on Saturday, November 2nd, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we're going to have tour buses that will take people to the different sites. There will be tour guides on the buses that will be talking about the locations in between the landmarks that we have designated as cultural sites. Now, there is also going to be a bus that is going to be wheelchair accessible, because we want to make the tour available to anybody who's interested in participating. It will start at the Black History Museum at Clemente Park. We're going to have a brief program and talk a little bit about the museum, about how all of this got started, and how we want people to recognize that there has been a lot of significant events that have taken place in the Dunbar community, and that we want to recognize these landmarks and the history of the people who are responsible for those cultural sites and maintaining the identity of the community. There are a lot of good things that have happened in the community, which historically started out as a refuge for Black people. In the early days of Fort Myers, there were only, or should I say Lee County, there were only 3 areas that Black people could live in, with Dunbar being the largest area. And nowadays, the process of renovation or restoration of the community is about to start, redevelopment, and we want to maintain a large part of the identity and the culture of that area.
Okay,
Now,
and let me just say this.
Go ahead. Let me go ahead.
While when the people are at the museum, they will get a chance to tour the museum. Although there's a program, they will get a chance to tour the museum, and they will get a chance to see the Gullah Geechee exhibit that's there now.
What is that?
The Gullah Geechee exhibit will open September 26th.
I mean, what is a Gullah Geechee? I didn't go to college.
The Gullah Geechee is from the people. We got this exhibit from a guy in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, the Geechees.
The Geechees.
I went to college with the Geechee. Okay.
Yeah, okay, you went to college
So
with
that
the Geechees?
the formal name is Gullah Geechees?
Gullah Geechees.
Okay, yeah, we just call him a Geechee. Go ahead. Had that
but
way you talk.
yeah, but that
Okay.
we got this exhibit, so it will be a nice exhibit for the people to see.
Let me break this down a little bit more, Janice. So you arrive there, it starts at 10 o'clock. That's when the program. Then the buses start moving. So if you want to be a part of this, you need to be there at 10, right? It's not like you can come wandering in at 12, or can you come wandering in and catch another bus? Just
We plan to have different
trolleys.
We're going to have at least 3 trolleys, and the first one is the first group, and it's going to be terraced, the staggered, the way that the tour buses depart from the park area. The first one's going to leave around 10:30.
Okay.
We're not only going to allow people to do a tour of the museum as part of what we're doing on that day, we're also going to stop at McCullum Hall, and the developer of McCullum Hall will be there that day, and it's going to be open, and people in the community will get a chance.
That'll be Don. Shout him out.
Don Patterson.
Don will get your name on TV.
Yes.
And we'll get Don in here in the future.
Right. He's going to tell people what he's planning to do with the location and how he plans to bring it back to some of its glory days and utilize it for some of the purposes that it had been used for before. We're also going to stop at the Dunbar Community School and ride through the 2 cemeteries, which are significant because during a period of time in Fort Myers, cemeteries were even segregated.
Okay.
And back to what Harriet said earlier about Mrs. Tillis being buried in one of the Black cemeteries, that's notable because she was a white woman. But because she married a Black man, she was considered by the majority white population to be Black now, so she couldn't be buried with white people.
That's true.
Boy, you learn something new every day.
That's so true.
Let's just go back to McCullum Hall for 1 second. Go back over there to you, Harriet. We mentioned McCullum Hall, but remember we're talking to people all around the world and all around the state. Just tell them a little bit brief on what is McCullum Hall.
McCullum Hall, it's called a hall because, and I can't remember exactly when it was built, but anyway, it was a building that they would have people like
Duke Ellington,
and
the Chitlin Circuit.
Yeah, the Chitlin Circuit would come and perform there.
Louis Armstrong. I think I read some
Count
Count
Basie.
Basie.
Ella
Yeah.
Fitzgerald. Those are some of the people that were known to have been there. And the Chitlin Circuit was a place where black entertainers went to black-owned
Black-owned.
clubs.
Primarily due to segregation.
During segregation. They would call it the Chitlin Circuit because it was an off from their regular tour of larger white clubs. They get an opportunity on the Chitlin Circuit to entertain black people. And in Fort Myers, when they came to McCullum Hall, a lot of white people used to
came
come
as
too
well.
because they wanted to hear good music.
That's
and,
right.
McCullum actually brought the best entertainers during that period of time. That was during the war years in the 40s. In fact, it was used as the USO during World War II, and it was the only sanctioned place that black military personnel was allowed to attend.
So, and it's on a renovation now. You mentioned the developer, so we're excited about that. So, the community groups that are working together with you on this, I know the Community Redevelopment Agency,
Yes, the-
CRA, is, and over there with Natalie and Michelle Hilton Terry, they're really excited about this.
Right, exactly. This came about from funds from the Florida Humanities Council. It's a grant from Florida Humanities Council. And the Community Redevelopment Center asked if the Black History Society would like to partner with them so that we could get this app and get this information for the Florida tours for Fort Myers.
Right,
Yes,
to have an
ma'am.
app, that's a big deal.
It is
It
a
is.
huge
Huge deal.
deal. And actually, the Community Redevelopment Agency partnered with us back in 2013 when Florida became 500 years old, and everybody throughout the state was commemorating the fact that Florida was now 500 years old. And Community Redevelopment Agency, along with Black History Society and the Dunbar Jupiter Hammond Public Library, joined forces, and I revitalized the original brochure that had been written in 1998 of the sites that are in the community, and we did a tour. We did a really lovely booklet, and that booklet, along with updates, is what the app is going to be all about.
I see, and I remember that book. I still have that booklet, and it's just a great thing to have as a historical piece. You mentioned Florida had turned 500 years old. Slavery is documented as being right around now. It's the 400 years have existed since slavery. Florida being 100 years before then. This tour is tied into that. I want you to expound on that as well.
Yeah, well, Florida is older than the United States to begin with. Let's start there. And then in 1619, officially, the United States recognizes, and this is actually before the United States, but documentation recognizes that the first people of African descent, the first Africans, were arrived in the United States. So this year, 2019, is another significant year because it's 400 years of documented facts that black people have been in America. So as part of acknowledging that fact, we're including this tour, this historic tour, because what the tour is all about is the resilience of black people in segregated South or segregated America, how we survived over the years, the things that we had to build up for ourselves in order to maintain or develop our own communities within communities.
Outstanding. So let's go back and recap a couple of quick things, and we'll wrap this up. The what, the when, and the where for the tour. November 2nd.
November 2nd.
Go.
November 2nd at 1936 Henderson Avenue, Clemente Park, the Lee County Black History Society at the Williams Academy Museum. The program will start promptly at 10 o'clock and will end at 2 o'clock.
a.m. And Janice, we mentioned some of the places that the tour was going to tap onto, but let's expound a bit on one, I think it's one of the great landmarks in our community. It's the Dunbar Community School.
Yes,
Because people may not realize how important that is to the rich history of the community.
Well, the community's been dubbed the Dunbar community as a result of the name of the school, which was named for a famous black poet, Paul Laurence Dunbar, who was born shortly after the Civil War ended. and he was actually born a free man. His parents had been slaves, but he was a prominent poet, and the school's name was adopted for him. That school on High Street, which is now the Dunbar Community School, was the first high school for black people in all of Southwest Florida.
Amazing.
When it was originally built, students from as far as Sanibel Island, before the bridges, can you imagine when they had ferries from Sanibel, before the bridges, and this was up until the 60s before the bridges were built, and black students from there actually had to catch the ferry into Fort Myers and then catch a bus or a ride or however they could transport themselves once they got on to the mainland of Lee County to get to Dunbar High School from Sanibel. We had students that came down from Charlotte County and came up from Collier County as well, because it was the only high school for blacks in the area.
So it stands to reason too that the first educators, black educators in this area in the school systems, I know they eventually integrated the school system, but prior to integration, they were coming from that Dunbar High School. Was that pretty?
Some of the educators were from the Dunbar High School.
Okay.
Yes, a
Professionals.
great deal of them were.
The teachers and so on.
Yes,
Principals.
like Ida Speed Baker, she's one of them. She was native, and we have a school out in Cape Coral now that was named for her. The first, she was the first black principal to head a school during integration.
You two are relatively young. Did you get to go to the high school? I'm just cloaking it in a nice way. You got.
We both graduated
both
from segregated
graduated.
Dunbar
Yeah.
High School.
Oh, so it hasn't been that long ago that.
That's what people don't realize.
Right.
That it hasn't been that long
We're
ago.
thinking like it's like back in the 1800s, but we're talking about.
And then again,
the
maybe
60s.
people see us from the dark ages too. You never know.
No.
But,
They know you guys are young.
I like for people to think within our lifetimes that it
Yeah.
hasn't been that long ago, and that
Amazing.
we've come a long way. And you think about it's been 400 years, and it's been a lot that black people have gone through and endured. We can talk about how things used to be in Fort Myers. We can go into the museum and look at documentation that says that what we know now as the Dunbar community was once called Safety Hill, because once you crossed east of that railroad track, you were in an area where blacks were free from being molested by white people, and that's a bad thing to have to note, but facts are facts, and it is a historical organization, and one of the things that we need to be aware of is the history of our community.
Well, I'm so glad that we got you ladies here to start, kept the ball rolling, and now we're using words like app.
Yeah, that's right,
that.
exactly.
Again, keep up the good work, and we'll be out there, and can't wait to November the 2nd.
November 2nd,
All right.
10 a.m.
Thanks, ladies. I go back a long ways with them. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. This is Lee Pitts, the host of the award-winning Lee Pitts Live here on Fox 4. We appreciate you watching our show here on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, clicking below. Let everybody else know that they can subscribe as well. Also, when we're on the air on Fox 4, you can also catch us streaming live at 8:30 a.m. in the morning on fox4now.com. Just click on live, and you get us all types of ways at your convenience. That's Lee Pitts Live.